Go on, tell me stories. What kind? Her eyes glittered in the light from the bedside lamp. Scary ones. They were in twin beds facing each other over the gap. There was not much luxury in this hotel, so only one lamp with a worn shade on a bedside table between them at the headboard end. It shone in his eyes, making him squint if he looked too far to the right. They might give you nightmares. We've got to be up early tomorrow if we want to catch the first bus. I won't have nightmares. I'm a big girl. She pulled down the quilt, revealing a nightie, which was loose enough to expose the edge of her breasts. She covered up again, grinning. It was just humor to her. But he shifted uncomfortably on the bed. His memories hardened into focus. It hadn't been his plan, but maybe it was worth encouraging her. Okay. I'm short on inspiration, so it'll have to be things from books or films. Since we're in a hotel, there's one I read once. A book by Dan Kuntz. I can't remember the title, but whatever. A woman was staying in a weird seaside town where people were acting strange. There was a scene in a restaurant where all the locals were stuffing spicy food into their mouths, but just staring ahead in silence as they ate. That kind of thing. She was in a hotel, got thirsty, and left her room for a soft drink. Her bedroom was in a long corridor with stairs at each end. All along the other doors were just two apparently empty rooms. She realized she hadn't seen any of the guests into the enclosed gloomy stairs to the ground floor. She put money in the drinks machine and got a can of something. But as it clunked, she thought she heard a door she'd come through 2 flights up, close. As if someone had been waiting for her to make a noise, which might cover the sound of them shutting the door. Stealthily. She listened, but heard nothing else. Still, she felt that there was someone listening to her, somewhere, on the shadowy staircase above her. If they were hiding and following her, it couldn't be good. She couldn't bring herself to go back up the stairs, but worried she was imagining it. So she entered that floor's corridor of rooms, walked quickly along it, opened the fire door at the base of the second set of stairs. At the other end, that was dark too. Maybe the lights were broken. She was just about to go up quickly when she thought she heard a click, a door on another floor opening or closing, as if the person had moved along her floor quickly and was now up there. Or, even worse, she suddenly realized, what if there were 2 people, one at each staircase? And they were working together, going to ambush her. Even now, one of them could be coming down the stairs, another could be at the other end of this corridor, having followed her down, and they could be getting ready to trap her for whatever reason. Shit, that's scary. What did she do? The sensible thing. Got help from the person on hotel reception. And of course, the member of the staff didn't find anything. Thought she was mad. Saw her in her room, but she wasn't mad. I won't say what happens next, but it's a good book to read, especially if you're staying in a hotel. All his books have a good premises, like the first of his I ever read. It was at school, Phantoms, I picked it up. It was my Nan's. She wasn't interested in it. I started reading. A woman and her sister, driving home for a holiday, get to their hometown after night, had fallen. And the weird thing is, lights on some houses, but there's no sign of life. No people on the streets, no one in the shops or bars, no answers at the door. She leaves her younger sister in the car, gets out, and walks down a pitch-black covered alleyway, thinking she can hear something in the rafters above her, almost panicking, but she gets through okay. She goes into a kitchen. It seems empty at first, but she realizes there are two hands holding a rolling pin, severed at the wrist. Something apparently cut them off before the person could react while in the act of rolling out pastries. No body, no blood, until she sees a head in the oven and gets out of there. That idea of being totally alone, a whole town wiped out without any sign of struggle. I just couldn't stop reading. We've not seen any people in this hotel. Yeah, I imagine if they'd all disappeared or been killed, and the killers were creeping down the hallway towards our room. They both listened for any noise. It was eerily quiet. Only an occasional scratch of rain gusted against the windows. Then they heard a cough from outside. Presumably someone having a cigarette on the grassy walkway. She smiled. Not all dead then. Not yet, he said in the most ominous voice. Hey, if this gets too horrifying, do you want to hop in my bed? Not a good idea. Why not? Wouldn't be the first time. Things are different. We're just friends now. No benefits. The benefit is my company. Spoil sport. What if I get cold at night? She shook her head. Just carry on with the scary stuff. He bit back a snide remark. Deep breath through the nose, then continued. A lot of Kuntz's books start with a kind of hook of intensity, where a woman stays at her friend's house in the country. It can't sleep, so stands by the window in the dark, thinking, and then realizes something has broken in and is killing her friend's family. So she hides under the bed. The killer comes in, puts the light on. She pulls a bag under it with her. At the last second, luckily, she hadn't got into the bed. It is still all made up, so the room looks unoccupied. But she can't leave people to die. And begins to sneak through the house in the dark, not sure where the killer is. I stay hidden. Even if your friend was still alive, she'd been raped and tied up, maybe you could free her before he came back. I don't want to think about it. Your turn then, to tell me something. Okay, this is true though. Yeah, right, he snorted. It is. I was looking after a friend's house once, years ago. I was about 20. They had a cat called Poppy, but it wasn't originally theirs. It had belonged to a woman, but she had killed herself, hung, and the cat had been in her house with her, locked in, and it was 5 days before anyone found the body. Really? Yeah, it was horrible. The cat was trapped with her body all that time. Poor thing. Anyway, I was looking after my friend's house while they were in Spain. I was staying in the guest bedroom. It was really nice. I like the house sitting. Hey, I can do it for you whenever what's his name is go on holiday. You know his name, and I doubt he'd want you in the house. I wouldn't root through your drawers. That's not the reason. And I'd rather you keep him out of the conversation, okay? House sitting. I was a bit nervous. I'd watched a horror film and I think it was The Fog, so I was jumpy. Kept looking out the windows to make sure there wasn't any fog rolling in, hoping the doorbell wouldn't ring, and then I went to bed, cuddled up to the cat. But in the night, I awoke for some reason, and realized the cat wasn't on the bed with me anymore. I switched the bedside lamp on. There was no sign of it. I got up on the landing light. I saw the door to the main bedroom was ajar. It had been closed. I was nervous, but I went in anyway. Switched the light on. The cat was sat on the bed, shivering and staring towards the corner of the room. And nothing. But it was as if it could see something. I couldn't. For the cat, something was there. Something hung there. I freaked out. It was so intense. I got out of there. Back to my room. Locked the door so the cat couldn't come in. Sat in the bed with the light on. When I told the owners the next day, they said often does that stairs up, as if it had been watched, its dead owner swinging there. They said not to worry. There wasn't a ghost or anything, but I never looked after that house again. I don't think I would either. Your turn to tell something again. Now, not from a book. The light from the lamp was a bit yellow, gave her skin a sickly tone. As she leaned there, on one elbow, facing him, eager for another tale. She looked good in bed, always had. Oh, I don't know. Though I remember something I was frightened of as a kid. Some story me and my cousins were used to tell me about the black nuns. What are they? The funny thing is, I can hardly remember many details about them. Now or even where we'd heard about them originally. Maybe we discussed it with other kids who'd known the legend. I was about 9. I think I just remembered that we got really scared when we talked about it. He'd be in a sleeping bag on the floor by my bed when he was staying, and in the night, we'd whisper about them after the lights went out. They were called the Black Nuns because they wore long black robes and whatever the hood things nuns wear. Wimples? Maybe. But they weren't alive. Maybe not human, even. They'd all had their head removed, and others sewn on their place. Heads that were blackened, swollen. They'd be poisoned or drowned or crushed, maybe heads from hell. I can't even remember why the heads were that way. We used to know. Dementia? The heads? Oh, you mean me? Unlikely at 30. I've heard of it. Maybe you're an old person. Senile, unable to walk, trapped in a decayed mind. Where it is 40 years earlier, and you fantasize that you're in your room with a beautiful woman. It would be a nightmare. cannibal, you wait until the light's off, then eat me. She frowned, perhaps seeing an undo there. After a pause, so these heads, they were sewn on rough stitches. He drew a zigzag line on the coarse blanket he had found in the wardrobe and had put it over the dovet to keep out the autumn chill. And the black nuns would appear around people's beds in the night, have sharp implements to cut off their heads and sew these weird black heads on. Make more black nuns? You'd wake and they'd be there staring. And they'd make their move. That's nasty. Yeah, they could appear anywhere. When you weren't looking, in a wardrobe or around a corner or in a bathroom. Then get you when you're weakest. They're like the combination of all your worst fears. I think they went after unbelievers, and maybe only adults that the bodies were the right size to sew on the heads. I vaguely remember something about them. Corrupting a person's blood first, changing their body until they were ready for the nuns to appear. I bet you both scared yourselves silly. We did. I remember one day he said we shouldn't talk about them anymore. Why? In case it summoned them. It was a silly idea, but seemed dreadful, yet true to a kid. So we stopped. Never talked about them again, just in case. Great, and now you've just told me. We were kids. It was just a fantasy. Still freaky. Tell me something that isn't real again. You're insatiable. Well, talking about the black nuns reminded me a bit of a film. The film Exorcist 3. Have you seen it? No? I think that film had heads being sewn on to bodies too. Maybe Jesus' heads from life-sized crucifixes. It's probably why I remember this. But it's a great scene. It's in a hospital. The camera is looking down along the hospital hallway with someone leading off. At the far end of the viewpoint is a desk and a nurse working there. It's nighttime. Then you hear a weird noise. A sort of crackling or crinkling, rustling noise. She looks up in the direction the camera past all the closed doors. The noise stops, creepy. Goes back to work, then you hear it again. She seems agitated, indecisive. You know there's something not right. If the noise isn't overtly ominous. She looked towards the door. Suddenly, the big one nearest her desk's open. She nearly has a heart attack. A doctor comes in. She's laughing, finishing his shift, tension all broken. He takes his leave, goes. She grins, goes back to work, and the noise again. Suddenly you remember how weird it is. She looks, works again. She starts to leave her desk to investigate, looking unhappy about it, but not able to ignore any longer. Starts to walk towards the camera. Don't tell me if it's disturbing. She opens the door, looks in, nothing. Does the same with the second door. The room is empty. Creak. Moves on, obviously nervous. Thinks she's near to the noise. Opens the door, cautious. Looks in, and you see it. His voice had lowered. She edged closer to the edge of her bed to hear him better. She brushed her hair behind her ear. He could smell the coconut shampoo she'd always used. What? A glass of whiskey with ice in. The ice was cracking in the warmth, breaking down. and breathed a sigh of relief. We do too. That's all explained. False alarm. She smiles, closes the door, starts to walk back to her desk. Then he claps his hand, making her flinch. Just as she walked past one of the rooms, she checked the door, and a man in a surgical gown and mask walk out with a pair of surgical shears at head height, decapitating her. Shit, it's so unexpected. What makes it creepier is that she checked the room. It was empty. Then he just steps out. No hesitation. Just methodical ruthlessness. Brilliant cinema. It's a masterpiece of tension. All done in one long shot. She thought she was safe from that direction. But you're not safe anywhere. It's like when I went to the pictures to see Blair Witch Project with a friend. I knew nothing about it beforehand. The film was disturbing, but I wasn't afraid. Then the final scene. She walks into the derelict room in a house in the woods, and something in the corner the girl had just walked past her gets her from behind. A dead child molester. I thought I was okay. Said bye to my friends. Went home, only lived in a pokey flat then. And I found I couldn't walk into a room normally. I was terrified that whenever I turned my back, something would be there. I ended up, this is true, going into my bedroom sideways. Back to the wall, so nothing can get me from behind. Edged around the corner and got into my bed, left the lights. On all night, like you would with a cat. Sat up in bed, watched the door, fell asleep, sat upright like that. I hate the way ideas get under your skin, stay with you. You can't turn your back on anything. Ugh. After that, every noise in the house seemed ominous. Signs of things creeping around. I've never seen that film. Don't want to now. Probably best. Another film that got under my skin is The Exorcist, the first one. It's worse because you know it really happened, but to a boy. He got possessed instead of a girl. I saw the film as a kid, made me worry about creaks in the attic. And I told my friends it was good. And they hadn't seen it. So when I found out there was a late night showing at a cinema in Manchester, four of us went. I was about 19, I think. It should have been good. I know the special effects can seem roppy if you're not into it, but the problem was that some people in the cinema were laughing, jeering, making noise. It was killing the effect, making it less scary, really annoying. So we came out, and my friends weren't that impressed. It was okay, kind of thing. We got on a bus home. The thing is, pictures get lodged in your head. The film is known for that. I think there's even a few bits where there are subliminal images, like a monstrous white face flashed over another face for a fraction of a second. And we got off the bus. It was all gloomy, just street lights walking down the road, thinking we were all fine. And I was walking past a car. I don't think I want to know anymore if this is going to be awful. It's okay, it's not bad. It's just as we walked past it, I saw something. I almost shrieked, because for a second I thought I seen a pale face with wild hair rear up in the back of the car towards me. I was so freaked out, but there was nothing there. My friends laughed. said it must have been a reflection, and I think they're right. But it seemed real, like I'd created or summoned it by believing in it, just a reflection. See? I said it wasn't terrible. I wanted to show that it's just in our minds, psychologically. It does creep you out. I feel like the hairs are on the back of my neck. Yeah, it's funny, sunny day. You never think of these things. Dead of night, crack yourself and it's your fault. You wanted to tell scary stories. I know. I wish we hadn't now. Because it affects you? Yes. He realized they had been talking more and more quietly, voice dialed down. It reminded him of times in the past. Things happened between them. And that was a different intimacy, from a different time. This was the intimacy of fear. He looked around the room. It definitely seemed more murky than before. Deep shade around the portable TV in the corner, next to a large wardrobe with creaky doors. The corner at the foot of his bed, which led to the bathroom and hotel room door, seemed more ominous. It could be hiding anything, psychologically. Just psychologically, he told himself. But it could be used if you were clever. He thought for a bit, then had an idea. It affects me too. Don't tell anyone this, but I hate being alone at night because I have 3 fears that always get to me. They're all related, and usually all of them freak me out at once. When I go toilet? Yeah, in the dark. When I put a light on. I'm trying to get over these fears, so I challenge myself. Doesn't work though. I'll probably regret this, but I can't resist if it's a toilet-related fear. What scares you? And don't dare tell me it's a giant snake. I know you remember tadpole, more like. If you're going to be like that, he turned away, as if only pretending that she offended him. Oh, she was going to get it. Don't be silly, tell me. Well, the first one is that when I go to the toilet in the dark, I cross the landing, then the entrance to the bathroom. Is the door right at the top of the stairs, down to the front door? And I try not to look down the stairs in the moonlight because I worry that I'll see a man. Michael Myers. Stood there in a workman's overalls, looking up with his pale moon mask and a large kitchen knife in his hands. And as soon as I see him, he'll start walking up the stairs quickly. That horrible, purposeful stride that isn't a run, but still means he'll get you in seconds. So I don't look, because I think that he won't be there. Except, as I go into the bathroom, I can see down the stairs at the corner of my eye. And because I'm not looking properly, I see there is the shape of the coats on the hooks. And it looks a bit like a man shape in the gloom. And as if he's there. And I rush into the bathroom and then look away to see if I need to bolt the door. Not that it would do any good because he could punch his way through. Breathing heavy, that eager rasping slash with the knife. Fuck! Stop! That's hideous! I know. It's from when I was a kid. I hadn't even seen the film Halloween. How did you know about him then? I went to W.H. Smith's with my mom after school. Maybe when I was about 9 and I saw a book called Horrors, a history of horror movies with a creepy vampire on the cover, coming out of blackness to bite a woman's neck. And it had loads of photos, and I got it home and started reading. lay on a big cushion and was fascinated. Couldn't stop head filling up with things. The first chapter weren't too scary. They covered old black and white films and were just interesting. And then there was a chapter called Nature Strikes Back, about the giant ants and killer bees and stuff. That's more my kind of thing. But then it got to chapter on murders and madness, and had a photo of Leatherface with his chainsaw chasing someone. It looked real, not like a film. And facing it was the Halloween picture. It filled the page. It was black and white, showed it a nighttime shot. Looking up at the staircase, Michael Myers stood at the top, solid and menacing. Really stark shadow and light, almost hiding part of him. It was the way he stood there, not running, just staring, and about to move. It really horrified him. And when I eventually saw the film, which was as nasty as I expected, I saw the scene where he comes down the stairs after Lori, he just sliced her, and she tumbled down. She had to get up, run through the dark house, bleeding with him coming after her. It's like the one in Exorcist 3 with the surgical shears. That kind of steady, determined, and deadly stride. And so that's what I expect to see when I go to the toilet in the dead of night. I wish I'd never asked. Now I'm going to think of that too. That's my trip to the toilet. Fear number 1. The second fear is as I leave the bathroom. I don't want to know. You do? Really? But this is already going to give me nightmares. Isn't fear good? You wouldn't want it. You wouldn't wanted it. You would want it. Don't be chicken. You're a monster. She put her hands over her ears. Fear number 2, she sniggered. I see what you did there. But that wasn't a joke. No, I leave the bathroom in the dark and always expect a shove from behind as I pass the top of the stairs. Some kind of malicious poltergeist. It will shove with loads of force, cold pressure, solid air, and I'll tumble down the stairs, breaking bones, and lie paralyzed at the bottom, knowing that whatever pushed me is moving down the stairs after me. I said I didn't want to know anymore. Then you took your hands off your ears. That's my second fear. I always feel my way to the banister and grab it as soon as I can. Grip it tight until I pass the top of the stairs. You're being mean now. Only one more fear. A sudden cracking noise from the other side of the wall, like splintering wood. They both recoiled, looked at each other wide-eyed. Then he shrugged. Just a door banging. First time I've heard anyone in the room next to us, she whispered. Yeah. Still looking to each other's eyes. He searched, but all he saw was signs that she was spooked. Oh well, he added. It's not like we've paid enough to have the whole extension to ourselves. No, I suppose not. Uncomfortable pause. Talk to me. I want to hear your talking. No more scary stuff, though. She was really scared. This was it. He reached across the gap between the beds to hold her hands. Ready to follow, she touched his fingers, then patted them, awkwardly, before moving her hand further away, moving towards the middle of her bed, away from him. He gritted his teeth. Right. I'll tell you the last one. I worry that if it'll look in the mirror above the toilet in the dark after midnight, I'll see the devil's face looking back at me instead of my own. Or maybe it'll be behind me, looking over my shoulder. I feel upset. Stop now. If it's any consolation, I've shit myself up to, he said. I keep imagining that someone is going to step around that corner from the bathroom with some shears. They'd be on us in a second, or someone would be in the wardrobe. They both looked at the corner. It seemed darker than before. They held their breath and listened. That's enough. I really mean it. Please. She looked like she was going to cry. He got her all right. Made sure things hadn't gone how she expected. She always wanted to control. Tough tits this time. He'd teach her to lead him on now. I'm going to the bathroom first, he said. As he picked up a magazine, he added, Wait, what's that scratching noise? And pretend to listen. Stop trying to scare me! What, like pretending I'm being attacked while I'm in there? Or coming out with a pair of scissors? Better fucking not! She gave him an evil look. He grinned. In the bathroom, he checked behind the shower curtain. First, just an empty stained bath. The room smelled damp, but all was safe. He washed his face and avoided looking in the mirror. Your turn, he said, as he stripped to his boxers and t-shirt. She got up on the side of her bed that was the furthest away from him. Typical. Hey, it's after midnight, you know. Don't look in the mirror. She glared at him before disappearing around the corner. Click of the latch. Maybe he could jump out on her. He looked around the room for a good spot, except then he realized that there were good hiding places. And he was more nervous than he realized. He drummed his fingers on the bed, watching the curtains and the shadows. And out of the corner of his eyes, they looked like they'd moved. Nonsense. Just psychological backfire. He turned his back to the window, felt as if he was being watched. He got pulled to the curtain's back. The window was fastened tight. Window ledge too narrow for a person. He heard taps in the bathroom. Looked around, opened the wardrobe cautiously, nothing but hangers, clothes and shadow. The toilet flushed into bed. He flipped his pillow, picked up a book, laid on his side, reading it, turning pages impatiently. The bathroom door opened. She must have already turned the light out in there. He avoided looking at her as she shuffled to the room and got into its silence. A pale shape. No monsters? He asked dimly, without looking. No reply. Fine, he turned the lamp off, lay down, fingers interlaced on his chest, fidgeted, lamp back on. Got up, opened the hotel room's door, looked out the long hallway, towards the stairs at the end. No people. One of the hall lights wasn't working, leaving patches of shadows around the abandoned trolley. Covered in towels and pillowcases, closed the door, flicked the lock, stared at it, then got a chair and leaned the door up against the door. Leaned it up against the door. He hesitated. The wardrobe was at the foot of his bed. Picked up the suitcase, rested, folded it, leaned it against the wardrobe door. Looked over his shoulder towards her, pleased. She was under the covers and hadn't moved. He frowned. She couldn't be asleep with all this movement. Back into bed. He had turned the lamp off. It clicked to the black silence. He lay on his bed, on his back, eyes yet to adjust to the darkness. It shouldn't be opened. Onto his side, a noise creak. bed springs. Rolled over, stretched his legs out, a bang from across the room. It was only the radiator, he told himself. Why did floorboards settle and radiators make strange gurgling noises after the lights went out? You hear all those noises? He whispered in silence. Silence. He sighed, frustrated, lay on his front arms, crossed under the pillow. Listen. It was quiet now. The room, the hotel around them, even the wind and rain seemed to have died down. He was just starting to relax. When he heard dripping noises from the bathroom, maybe the shower, these old places with their creepy plumbing. He tried one last time. Hey, you hear that dripping? It might be the black nuns forming in the bathroom. No answer. Maybe she really was asleep. He thought about what he'd just said. Wished he hadn't. Listened until the dripping stopped. He scrabbled up from the wall. From the well of sleep. A noise nearby creaking into the blackness, disoriented. At first, then he realized it was probably her bed spring when she changed the position. Maybe she was awake. He whispered her name, his voice sounding hollow, a movement wrestling. Felt irrational, fear picking up. Decided to turn the light on even though she'd be angry if he woke her. For some reason, he was afraid to reach his hand out from under the covers to turn on the lamp. His eyes adjusted to the murky dimness a bit. He saw a vague shape, as if she sat up in bed watching him. Panicking, he reached for the lamp, his hand brushing rough material in passing. There was a smell of burning. The lamp came on. The charred yet swollen face was staring at him from hollow eyes. Figure of coarse black clothes. He could see the rough bloody stitching at the neck where it joined flesh that was discolored with infection, weeping and raw. Holes in flesh pulled taut in attachment. It had been watching him sleep. The bed behind him was soaked in blood. Some ran down the wall, drying, spread on the headboard. Periphery of his vision, he thought there might be other figures in dark robes, in the murky shadows. And on the other side of his bed was her body, uncannily stood, facing into the corner, shivering but headless, above a ragged neck wound. The blood smeared and sharp shears in the figure's hands. The obvious cause. Then he noticed black string along the thick needle on the dovet next to his disemboweled head. Blackened and ready to be sewn. No! 2 heads. He stuttered as the figure rose and leaned over him, eager, focused, methodical. Even opening the shears and cutting his screamed Short.